Welcome, Άγγελος Αγγέλου. Welcome to Panorama 2021. It's always wonderful to be involved in this fantastic event. I'm Stavros Messinis. I run the Cube in Athens, and I'm really glad to be speaking with you today, Angelos.
Well, thank you for allowing me to participate. It's a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be talking to you. I remember we met a few years ago while you were in Athens, and it's always good to exchange views and have a quick chat with you. And today, I think we have a few visitors watching us right now. So, and this is the format of a fireside chat. So normally we wish to have a little fire burning on the and between us, but we'll settle for a virtual fire. And hopefully the bits will behave themselves, and our connections will be good, and we can exchange some views. And I'm in a room where the lights kind of turn off automatically for some reason, so I may be waving my hands a bit here and there, but that's not. I'm not asking for help. I will be trying to get the lights back on. So, Angelos, 25 startups in your portfolio. You've been involved. Not only with the Greek ecosystem, but very much with the Austin ecosystem. So, United States. Tell us a little bit about how you began your career with startups.
Well, first and foremost, I'm an economic development expert. That's what I've done all my life as VP of Economic Development for the Austin Chamber of Commerce, as well as the chief economist for the city for many, many years. And I kind of saw a lot of cities spend a lot of money, millions of dollars, preparing for themselves to acquire an auto plant or a data center, and much of that money was wasted. And I began to speak about the importance of entrepreneurship, and it would take much less money to create an ecosystem for many of the cities in the US. And no one was listening. This was 15 years ago. So I decided to do it myself and show them how. That's kind of how I go about doing things and have done things in all my professional career. So the Accelerator started in 2016 with a few portfolio companies from Europe. Spring of 2016. So we're about 5.5 years old, and we've done quite well. We focus on foreign-born entrepreneurs only, which is a market niche for us. And I also believe it will contribute to our continued success, because foreign-born entrepreneurs are very smart, very capable founders or co-founders. They never give up. They're frugal, and failure is not an option. So we now have 25 companies and growing. Our goal is to recruit 12 new companies per year.
Fantastic. I expect that coming from Europe, or coming from an ecosystem which is not as populous, if you like, or doesn't have the density of American ecosystems like San Francisco or even Austin, or Boulder, Colorado is another very famous one, or even New York. You say failure is not an option. We certainly are high achievers, and the resources are relatively scarce. There isn't money abounding, not many investors, so it does make it really important that we are frugal and we put every euro to the best possible use, and make sure it's money well spent. You've made a few Greek investments as well, if I recall.
We have a few Greek startups in our program. The Insivio, Gridmates, and Skooks. Skooks is from Thessaloniki, and perhaps the most successful of all. This past year, we had a successful partial exit from them. Then there was yet another opportunity to sell a few more of our shares a few months ago at a very high valuation. So Skooks has provided us with at least 100x of our original investment. So we're very, very pleased of the exit that they have had. and the investment from a major private equity group.
That's wonderful news. That's wonderful news. And you may have heard of a recent or an acquisition that was announced yesterday, where Lenses.io was acquired, and that's another one
yes.
of the successes of the Greek ecosystem. After there's this almost like a serial number of exits that are happening in the last few months, and it's great to see that we're producing more successful entrepreneurs, more exits, and that cycle of I have an idea, I raise money, I build a company, I raise more money, I expand my company and exit from my company, and then eventually become part of the ecosystem as an investor has happened a number of times in Greece. And that's a wonderful thing, and that will help our density too. I wonder if I may ask if you were to give us some advice, perhaps one or two pieces of advice for our audience, mainly students from what I understand, how might they enter the ecosystem? What should they be looking for in terms of developing their skill set or their qualities so that they can join the ecosystem and be part of a successful company?
Well, I think Greece has quite a strong talent pool, even though much of it has also moved overseas over the years, and particularly during the pandemic and the economic crisis. But there is there is significant talent that can be leveraged, and also a great number of technology-oriented workers to hire. I'd say entrepreneurship is the ultimate achievement of an individual. So if you have an idea, pursue it, live your dream, as we say in America. The thing that I would like to suggest is that draw upon the plethora of experienced entrepreneurs that have exited, built an advisory board, built some mentors, because 65% why startups fail is because they don't have a good mentor. They don't have an advisory committee, if you will. And that, to me, is essential, and that's what we do at the International Accelerator here in Austin. We have 35 mentors and experts, and they contribute significantly to the success of our companies.
Absolutely. So engage is what you're saying. Engage with successful entrepreneurs. Add them to your network of friends. Become present in their world, and seek advice as much as possible to keep you on the right track.
What I believe is lacking, and Stavros, you would know this better than I do, is angel funding. Now there is plenty of venture capital funding, which, from my own experience, it can be very expensive. So we typically raise up to $1 million for each one of our portfolio companies through a safe instrument, which is the best way to raise money for startups in the U.S. And they come from a variety of angel investors, anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000, 200,000. And that's how startups get started here before they will go into raise capital from the venture capitalists or private equity. Mm-hmm. A venture capitalist will want to have 25% control of your company, no matter how much money they invest in you. And I prefer for startups to have reached a level of traction or revenue, if you will, to be able to raise money through Series A, let's say, at a more than $50 million valuation as opposed to a $10 or $15 million valuation.
Yeah, I have a sense that the way the ecosystem locally has developed, we have perhaps leapfrogged the angel networks. And if we look at the history of how the angel investments with the original open fund, 10 years ago, whatever it is, 8 years ago, and how that morphed into a VC fund. And George was in one of the earlier sessions, if I recall. I think we've leapfrogged that, and perhaps we need to kind of backtrack a little bit so we can help form more angel networks and actually have those earlier investments rather than every startup hitting the VC funds for higher and, like you say, more expensive money. And I think what you're alluding to when you say expensive, they're giving a bigger share of their business away for less money at a very early stage, and we need to try and avoid that at all costs.
Correct. Unfortunately, I think they're forced to do that because there's no way to raise $1 million in seed capital from angel investors for most of the startups in Greece.
I think it's a European problem, I would say.
It is?
I don't see it only in Greece, but it could be a European. I'm just going to wave my hands a little bit. These lights
So our companies have, in our portfolio, have raised 140 million so far. Of course, two of them raised upwards of 50 million each. So the number is kind of misleading when you look at it in its totality. But still, 40 million we've raised for 25 portfolio companies. And by the way, we had a few more companies, some of them fail, and that's part of the end game. No one should expect that every entrepreneur will be successful, no matter how well both the entrepreneur and the incubator or accelerator are intended to do well with every one of their startups. That's kind of a part of the game.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And we're seeing too few $50,000 checks being written for early stage ideas, almost zero right now in Greece. I mean, we're seeing the very early stage companies raising 200K for 20% or something like that, and that's not. I expect not the best way forward. But I promise on my end at least to do a little bit of lobbying here and there with wealthy individuals and help them get into the game because it is a really fun game. It's a really interesting game.
Well, I believe they also need visibility. Mm-hmm. And I was very, very happy a number of years ago to have hosted up to 70 Greek entrepreneurs in Austin to attend South by Southwest, which is a huge entrepreneur gathering here in Austin every March, with the assistance of the Hellenic Initiative and the U.S. Embassy.
That's right.
They provided the funds to fly them out here and pay for their ticket to South by Southwest, which is not cheap. Mm-hmm. And I found that many of them lacked the visibility, and by being here and understanding how the ecosystem in the U.S. works, became better at pitching, became more aggressive. And I think quite a few of them, as they went back, leveraged their participation here and knowledge and raised $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 each. Yeah. So I was very, very proud of that.
I'm hearing some advice coming out that basically I think what you're saying is travel, get exposed, get out there, get in front of people.
Absolutely. And along the way, you may receive recognition. You may meet investors. You may meet other successful startups. I saw how many of them were collaborating while even they were staying in my home.
Sure.
Networking and collaboration is key to having a successful startup.
I'm just going to make a note for some of our viewers. If you want to put some questions in the Q&A for Mr. Angelu, I will happily read them out because we have a few minutes left. And I'll keep my eye on the chat window as well. And you're planning a trip now to Athens in the next couple of weeks from what I understand?
I'll be there on the 21st, and I'll be staying a month. Unfortunately, I have so much to do here. My plan, quite frankly, is to spend 6 months in Greece from now on and 6 months in the U.S. We are at the stage, my wife and I are at the stage of our lives that we don't need to work as hard as we used to and have been working. But at the same time, we love working. I just don't know that I will ever retire. So even though I plan to spend more time in Greece and traveling around the world, I do plan to spend quite a bit of time with entrepreneurs and helping them grow and succeed.
Fantastic. I think the Greek ecosystem can only benefit from having more face time with you. I can't wait for you to hear more of the successes, more of the exits, more of the startups that are starting, and more people are daring, because that's another big part of it, right? It's daring. It's having that daring attitude, and we Greeks are daring. If we can get out of the clutches of our parents who keep us fearful, and try to take those chances and make something of it.
Yes. What I'm delighted about is that for the first time in the last decade, I've seen Greeks coming out of universities, not necessarily wanting to work for the big company, but wanting to work for themselves and experiment. And that's really fantastic, because that's the way an entrepreneurial ecosystem begins. You have to have quite a bit of faith in your idea. You have to give it your all. And it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Anyone who thought that they could start an idea and be successful right away, they're wrong. In fact, I define entrepreneurship as mastering the art of pivoting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because none of our entrepreneurs, even the ones from Greece, stayed with the same idea. But as they pivoted, they became very, very successful. And I would say Skooks, until the exit from Blue Ground, I was looking at the data. It was going to be the highest exit for any Greek startup, but I think Blue Ground did a little bit better. So we're delighted to see Greek companies succeed, both in Greece and in the international arena, and I hope this continues.
Mr. Angelu, thank you very, very much. I think we've got maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. What is the best way for someone to reach out to you, and what should they, I'm not only saying, what are the contact details, but I mean, the best way for me often is, if somebody's coming to me with a proposal, I'd like it formatted in a specific way so that we don't waste each other's time. How would you advise me to be prepared to meet with you?
Send me an email at angelos@internationalaccelerator.com. Call me on my cell. On WhatsApp, the number is 512-658-8400. At my age, I still work 16 hours every single day, 7 days a week, by the way. So WhatsApp is the best way to reach out to me.
Fantastic. I don't see any questions, but I might put 1 or 2 more to you while we still have the link open for the next 2 minutes. So Athens is entering autumn season. It's always the best season to start, to start something. Summer season in Greece, unfortunately, is a slow down season. We start accelerating in the autumn, and in the winter we work our best when it's cold out there. What kind of trends are you seeing? I can see a lot of infrastructure startups in Greece forming and creating and doing well. Is it going to continue in infrastructure, do you think? Do you see more AI? Do you see more robotics? Do you see more retail? The pandemic, of course, has played a significant role.
Much of the Greek ecosystem is, I say, quite diverse. I've seen, and by the way, I used to be a judge for the MIT Enterprise Forum, the Hellenic Initiative also. I do attend and judge those online. I participate in at least 24 or 36 entrepreneurial competitions, either as a judge or as an observer. Because I'm also an investor, and while in the last 6 years I've confined myself to investing only in startups in the Accelerator, I typically invest up to $100,000 as an angel investor in every one of our startups when I see traction.
What is traction for you? Is traction a specific set of revenue metrics? Is it
not necessarily revenue? It could be growth in the
user base.
Even though without revenue. We have another portfolio company called Restream.io from Ukraine.
Right.
That has had a $250 million valuation and had it to be definitely a unicorn. And they were free for the first 3.5 years. And only in the last 2 or 3 years, they began to monetize, and now they're a $40 million company and doing extremely well and growing very, very quickly. We have a couple of more that are on the same path. So eventually I think we will have about 4 unicorns out of our program, and a few others, of course, that will be quite successful as well, but not unicorns. So, excuse me, I've been fighting a cold the last 2 weeks. So I'm very bullish on the Greek ecosystem. It's going to, it's maturing day by day, and moreover, I hope to see recurring serial entrepreneurs, and I've seen a few of those examples, where those that have exited well and now it's time to either become angel investors. Don't join a venture fund, become an angel investor.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There's more joy there. And at the same time, contribute to the growth of the Greek ecosystem as a mentor, as an advisor, and stuff like that.
For sure, for sure. Well, I'm told we have 8 more minutes, so we have some time to chat.
Okay, well,
so that's
away.
Really good. That's good. That's good. I was getting a little stressed that I hit 15:42 here. What time is it there for you by now? It must be early morning for you. Yes.
It's 7:42 a.m.
Okay, 7:42 a.m. So good. Let me see. I'm just curious whether the questions I'm seeing are top to bottom or bottom to top. Let me look at it. Let me put a question to you. I think it's from the audience. Can a startup that wants to grow through acquisitions in a fragmented business sector use commercial loans such as a small business association loan, SBA, or small business agency loan?
That will be very difficult. SBA typically invests in tangible assets, in real estate, maybe equipment, but never is used for an acquisition target. So, I purchased my building, a small building, office building here in Austin, using half of the funding from SBA loans and half from a bank. It's a great source of funding for many small businesses that want to grow, not necessarily only technology. They like the acquisition of real estate. They like the acquisition of hardware, equipment, if you will. That's what they will fund. They don't fund working capital, and therefore you could not use that money for acquisitions. Private equity will be the only way to go. Maybe some banks, although, again, they are also nervous on funding anything that is soft, considered a soft asset. Best type of growth is bootstrapping and friends and family. Having a strategy to grow via acquisitions for a startup is a very difficult thing to do. And I hope if those that are very successful at doing it, to be careful, because the startups are inherently very risky, and you would expect maybe 1 out of 10 startups to succeed in the US. We are at almost 3 out of 10. So again, I contribute that to the value of the foreign-born entrepreneur that they bring to the ecosystem. But, if you are a company and you have revenue and you can acquire other companies for your growth, that's fine. But typically that begins when you have at least 15 million in revenue already, not at the very early stage.
All right. I think most of our talk so far has been with your angel investor accelerator hat on. I wonder if we can swap hats for a moment, and you might put on your economic development advisory hat on. And if we were to be giving or even looking at what's happening in Greece in terms of the chambers and how they're contributing to not only the chambers but generally the state mechanism and how they're contributing to economic development, how might we advise or give some idea to some people who are watching us right now from an economic development background in Greece? How might they approach? And I'm guessing I'm asking from your experience with Austin and how much of that might apply locally.
Well, let me give you a broader experience of how chambers work in the U.S. The Austin Chamber of Commerce is a combination, if you will, of the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Development. We don't spend any of our time, or I did not, issuing export licenses and other paperwork and documentation. Our only focus was to recruit new companies to Austin and provide incentives and create, therefore, jobs. And as a Greek, I'm proud to say, and this is a bit self-serving, I hold the record in the U.S. in the number of jobs created for the 11 years that I was with the Austin Chamber of Commerce, as well as the capital investment. The number of jobs, direct and indirect, exceeded 280,000, and the level of investment by now, with subsequent investments, exceeded 40 billion in a period of 11 years.
Νομίζω ότι πρέπει να σας φέρουμε μεταγραφή. Μεταγραφή στην ομάδα μας.
Well, I've also learned to be careful what you wish for. You're always an expert if you come from outside and you're non-Greek. The Greek governments, successive governments, believe that only the big firms, the Deloitte and the Ernst & Youngs, are capable of doing economic development work, and I believe that's where everyone so far has been wrong. There is many consulting firms like Angelo Economics and many others in the U.S. that have had a much better track record in success with economic development strategies. And by the way, our firm has completed strategic planning work in economic development for over 650 cities in the U.S., maybe a dozen states, as well as a dozen countries. So we've developed a strategy for Austria, for Czech Republic, for Malta, for Portugal, many Latin American countries, very successfully, because we gave them something different than the big five usually do.
That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. I hope that at some point, that some of that advice could filter down into the local ecosystem. We have one more question before we wrap up. I think it's rather specific. Have you seen, in your experience, a company use a success fee basis with accountants and lawyers while it's growing?
Accountants, no. Lawyers, yes. We have legal counsel today that actually invests in some of our companies. All of their fees are deferred until the company raises at least $250,000. And moreover, we control that expense significantly, whether it's an immigration attorney or whether it's a corporate or a securities legal counsel. We're always looking for great vendors, if you will, to complement our ecosystem that will not rape every startup that they work with.
Sure.
Pardon the use of my language, but we've had law firms that were charging $1,500 an hour, and I say, don't waste any of your time working with those type of lawyers. Just hire someone at $350 or $400, which again, by Greek standards, that's a lot of money, but in the U.S. is probably a good number to think about as you look at potential vendors.
Mr. Angelu, thank you so much for being with us today. We have to close. I've seen a message here from the control. It's been wonderful to chat with you. I do hope that we can meet as soon as you're available. And Greece is privileged to have you as one of their citizens. Thank you so much, and perhaps see you at the next Panorama.
Well, thank you, Stavros. I'm privileged to be Greek.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.